Good Tuesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready to host Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Players' day off. Front office busy, though. Ethan Posick, who was injured in the game against the Bills, was put on IR, and the Browns have signed center Greg Mance off the Bills practice squad. 7th year out of Toledo. Mance has started 32 games in the NFL, has played in 64 during his career. Let's welcome in G. Bush, 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. G. Bush, Posick was playing really, really well, so that's going to hurt this offensive line.
Yeah, it's almost counterproductive to even talk about the offensive line because it just seems like whoever they throw in there, they're good. Posick, it was a guy who, at the beginning of the season, we talk about Harris going down, and we're like, man, this is crazy, man. Do you get J.C. Treader? But lo and behold, you look at his PFF grades, you look at what he was doing, and you look at just the eye test, the way the Browns were able to continue to run the football with him. That's a big one. I take a look at the two plays during the game where he had Froholt, who's played generally well at guard. You have to move him to center, and they had a couple snaps that weren't high enough. You end up with the 2 4th downs, or the 3rd down you went for the sneak, lost yards. You lined it back up again and ran it again with Jacoby Brissett, who's been really good with those plays all year, and they missed it again. So you kind of see on the wall, the writing on the wall, just from, those couple plays that he was out and what the Browns are missing. So, you look at it, and the last few games, I take a look at the Buffalo Bills and what they kind of ran. They just basically said, we're just not going to let you run the ball like that. We're gonna make sure that, we get guys in the backfield. We're going to be disruptive. And you take a look at what the Bills did. They did just that. A lot of heavy boxes, and the Browns haven't been able to run the ball in the last couple of weeks. You see the total carries for Nick Chubb have gone down. He's yet to be over 20 carries, and when he gets over 20 carries, the Browns are generally a good team, and you could probably chalk them up for a win. He's only been around 11, 12 carries, maybe 13, 14 carries, and a lot of that has to do with the team stopping the run, and also on top of that, teams saying, hey, Jacoby Brissett, let's see if he can make some throws. And to Jacoby's, to Jacoby's, I guess, his credit, he's done a really good job at doing that. But this is going to hurt a little bit, especially going against a defense like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who can do some of the same things the Bills can't, get after you, speed, and their front four can be formidable as well.
Well, the problem for the Browns has been they haven't been able to stop the run, and this kind of puts it really in like eye-gouging perspective. So they're plus 0.14 expected points added per designated rush. And now that would be the equivalent to being as efficient as a top 10 passing offense. That is how much the Browns' run defense has struggled. And you and I talked about it early. I was concerned about defensive tackle and the young guys. Well, none of the young guys have stepped up, and none of the young guys are really stout enough against the run. I think if you're asking them to do that, you're asking them something out of their strengths.
No. Disappointing thing is, we talked about this. We talked about it. One guy named Ndamukong Suh his name has been brought up a lot on this channel, a lot on this show, and we talked about him too. You look at Jordan Elliott, you look at Tommy Togiai, you look at Taven Bryan, you look at all these guys that have been rotating in there. Chase Winovich, we haven't seen him much. And when he is out there, I don't know what he's really giving you. And let's be clear, Jadeveon Clowney has not given you much this year either. You take a look at his production totals as far as what he's done in getting after the quarterback. Also, his production in stopping the run. Nothing has looked good up front, and we kind of knew this going into the season. I told people like this. I said I would hate to throw this out there, but I've coined the term on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. This year, to me, due to the lack of moves and the lack of actual making adjustments to the defense, I literally can only come to the conclusion that this was a what we would call a gentleman's punt on this year. I don't know if after that 11 game suspension came down, I think it was a gentleman's punt. They said, listen, hey, we're not Nick Chubb. We're not going to waste all the rest of the tread off Nick Chubb's tires. We're only going to give him 20 carries or less. We're not going to be doing it trying to run to get the ball. We want to see what's going on with some of these younger guys, maybe Jerome Ford. We're going to slowly phase Kareem Hunt out of the playbook. And then what we're going to do, we're going to see what these young guys have. If the young guys don't have it, we'll go and we'll address that in the offseason. But we want to roll over all the available cap money that we have from this year to next year, because we are not in the position right now as constituted without Deshaun Watson to win games. So I think that it was a gentleman's punt. Now, what made it difficult was you can't go to any of the veterans in the locker room and tell them that. You can't go to the Myles Garrett or Denzel Ward or any of these guys and say, hey, by the way, we're putting on the season, but we still want you to play hard. And it also made it more difficult to hide that because Jacoby Brissett played better than what we thought he was going to play. And so now you get a situation where I just don't think any competent staff, and I know that Andrew Berry has made some good moves, but nobody would look at this defensive tackle room and defensive line position and say, this is going to be something that we're going to be able to win ball games with. And so that's what I come to the conclusion. They punted on the season. They just can't tell you that.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Ron from Cleveland, and I wanted to call to see what you guys think about the situation that the Browns are in right now. Out of the last 25 games that Stefanski has coached us, he's won 7. Is this a knock on his talent that he has to play with? Is it a knock on the defensive coordinator that apparently keeps things exactly the same way they are? The players have even come out. Delpit said that the coach just keeps everything the way it is, and that's just good enough for him. I don't know. I'm just frustrated like every other Browns fan at this point in the game. You know, it seems like we're headed back to the Hugh Jackson era, and I definitely don't want to go back that far again. So tell me what you guys think we could do in the future. Is Barry not drafting the right people? Has he spent too much on a couple players? Now we're not going to be able to field a great team? Just let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much. Love your show. As always, my Browns. Love them. Woof.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Some valid questions there, G. Bush. I did have a horrible flashback when he mentioned the Hugh Jackson era. But there's a lot. When you look at it in those terms, of the last 25 games, Kevin Stefanski's only won 7. I know there's quarterbacks and injuries, and that's life in the NFL. It's got to be better.
Man, you listen, we told him last year. I mean, we spoke about it. I said, listen, last year you get rid of Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, Odell leaves, he goes to the Rams, looks like a different player. We thought he was washed up, not so much. He wins the Super Bowl. We had the Baker Mayfield situation where you can say what you want, but a lot of people said, well, if Baker Mayfield is so hurt, why is the coach playing him? Sit him down. And people thought it was a wasted year last year. They eventually moved on from Baker. Okay. Now you got this thing with Deshaun Watson. You haven't seen him play. They thought he was going to get to 6 games. It went to 11. But to be honest with you, it hasn't been the quarterback play that's cost you. We can, play tit for tat and then say little things about Nick Chubb not getting the ball enough. But other than that, their offense has been a relatively good side of the football. But there's a couple things that have been consistent. Prather in the special teams, non-existent. You can't recover onside kicks. We have a glorified fair catcher back there, and I know, James Grant was part of the organization and part of what they wanted to do to upgrade the kicking game, but that hasn't been good. You've also been giving up a bunch of points in the kick return in a punt return game on the opposition. Teams are getting great field position on you, and you've had block kicks and mixed kicks, so that doesn't look. And then the defense is just in shambles. I was never the biggest Joe Woods fans in the world because I think he just played too conservative. Now a lot of people who supported him, the retort was he doesn't have his guys, G. Bush. Give it a couple years, he gets his people in here, gets his drafts together, and be ready to go. Well, they went out and got Jadeveon Clowney. They went out and they spent third-round picks on guys like Jordan Elliott. They put Taven Bryan was a free agent that they went out and got. They got one of the biggest name free agents in John Johnson. Delpit was a high pick. You look at Newsome, who is a number 1 overall pick. Denzel Ward is and then they bolster that by getting the MJ Emerson. So you have playmakers. You got pieces and parts. And for those pieces and parts to be as bad as they were, especially in the defensive tackle room, that's an indictment on your coaching staff because you failed to make any sort of adjustments. And you're still playing passive. What do you have to lose? I mean, guys are getting 200 yards on you. I mean, it can't. People say, well, it's not going to do anything because it's not going to change. And I said, yes, it will change something. Kevin Stefanski can let people know, hey, everyone's on notice. What's happening on the field ain't good enough. And if I'm holding coaches accountable, I'm going to be holding players accountable too. And let them know and signal this is not good enough. But just letting it get faster and hang out and, you start to lose confidence in the whole organization when everybody sees something not working. It's glaring. It's there for everyone to see, and no one does anything. That's the worst thing you can do is inactivity when you see something wrong as a leader. And I think the longer it lasts, the worse it's going to get.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush from 92.3 The Fans, The Barber Shop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Not really sure what to say at this point in the season. The Browns really just suck. There's no way around it. We've made backup quarterbacks this year look like all pros. We've let running backs who don't even break 50 yards a game come in and run against us and look like they've been on all pros for 5 years. We have to be the only team in the NFL who makes weak systems look great. So it's like, what's the point of blaming the coaches? Jimmy don't care about winning. We had this conversation before, and you guys say he cares about winning. Well, if he cares about winning so much, show me the hire that shows he wants to win, because this is the longest staff he's had on since he's been the owner. And I think they'll get one more year, but he hasn't hired anybody that's got any kind of experience as a head coach. He hasn't hired anybody that's, really football knowledgeable about winning. So at the end of the day, does he care about winning? Because he gave Deshaun Watson $230 million, can't win by himself. We'll be just like the Houston Texans. We'll win a bunch of games and get knocked right out in the playoffs. Miles sitting on the sidelines by himself. It's only a matter of time if things don't change. He's not going to come back. The Deshaun Watson, they said he came here because of our roster, but I don't see one pick on our team that's really any good other than Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb. But where's the rest of these draft picks that are supposed to be so good? Hurt or not worth a damn. So go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. G. Bush, I don't question whether Jimmy Haslam wants to win. I question whether he knows how to get there. And those are two very different things. I think he really wants to win. I'm not sure he has the plan to get there.
Yeah, it starts with, it does start with Jimmy Haslam, starts at the top. But, when you had a bunch of first-time guys, and I don't, Joe Woods I wouldn't consider him a first-time guy, but you got a lot of young guys in Stefanski, right? I would have encouraged Kevin Stefanski to go out and get a veteran guy on the defensive side of the ball who is the defensive head coach over there. And for lack of better terms, I need a personality maybe like Greg Williams. To me, the Browns are a little too soft. They're a little too passive in the way they talk. They're a little too passive in their messaging. And I just don't see I don't see the level of adjustments being made at the highest levels that you need in the NFL. When teams come out, and it just goes to show you, when you come out and you script your first 15 plays, the Browns score every time. They look like the 72 Dolphins. They look like the Bill Walsh 49ers. Boy, they come out there right down the field, boom, 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 let's go. Well, the reality is you practice those plays enough. Those are the plays you're practicing. What a real coach has to do is, what are you doing on the fly? What are you doing when you can't stop something that you didn't think they was coming out with? What are your adjustments? What are something you pull out to make them stop doing certain things that they didn't have? Kevin Stefanski hasn't shown that yet. Now here's the I guess the catch-22. Could Kevin Stefanski be a great coach with the right people around him? That may be a distinct possibility. Maybe Kevin is better if he has somebody on defense who has a mentality that of a Greg Williams or Zimmer or Lovie Smith, or a guy or even like a Mike Singletary over there, who's going to rule that side of the ball with iron fist, knows what he's talking about, knows defense is going to be able to inspire those guys. And then he can do his thing over here. But one thing that we have to consciously look at and say, does he pay enough attention to that side of the ball, special teams and defense, and does moving the play calling away from him help the rest of the team because he is actively in those game plans as well? We don't know those things. All I know is the one move that should be made, and it should have been made a long time ago, is Joe Woods. And because at this point they need a wake-up call. The whole team needs a wake-up call. Defense is not good enough. But Kevin Stefanski, whether you believe it or not, he's going to be back here next year, because one of the reasons Deshaun Watson is here is because of Kevin Stefanski. So he'll get an opportunity to prove himself with Kevin. But here's the problem. He can't start 1-5, 2-6, 2 and anything. That seat is going to be hot next year, coming right off into it. And that's if Deshaun Watson has a good year the last 6 games. He might get a little but next year, it's going to be a tough sell if they start off slow.
All right. This is from Jake Trotter. Browns have a 2.7% chance of making the playoffs, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. There is also a 16.1% chance that Cleveland's pick, which is now owned by the Houston Texans in the Deshaun Watson trade, lands in the top 5 of the draft per Football Power Index. And G. Bush, before we started the show, I said, can you imagine the fan base and what it will be like if that pick turns out to be quarterback C.J. Stroud?
Man, they go crazy, bro. They'll be pumped. I do think there is a slight caveat to that. It all depends on what Deshaun Watson looks like in these last games. So there's 2 or 3 ways that this thing can go, and one of them actually is kind of positive. So if the Browns win this weekend, that's a big gift, right? If the Browns win this week, right? That means they go to what, 4-7 or something? Yeah, 4-7. So the people will be excited because they beat Tom Brady. Anytime you beat Tom Brady, don't matter. People are excited. They get extra over the top with it. Then you go into the week saying, well, hold on. Well, we got Deshaun Watson coming back this week. Deshaun Watson, we want to see what he plays like. If they beat the Texans, which Texans aren't a very good team, then you're at, where are we at? 5-7.
Yep.
Now, all your voicemails switch up a little bit. Well, the Browns are on a 2-game winning streak, and don't let Deshaun Watson accidentally come out here and put some points on the board and look good. You'll have a whole convert. There'll be 25% of the fan base that'll cling to that 2.7 chance. And at least the ratings across the radio waves and television will be better because you got a little something. The worst thing that could happen is not having Deshaun Watson, and Jacoby Brissett is playing well. It doesn't bode well. We can't even talk about it because we know Deshaun is going to start when he comes back. So that's the way it looks decent. That can save your season. It can save Kevin Stefanski, because then Kevin Stefanski can trade the biggest commodity in all of the NFL and professional sports. And that one commodity is hope. We will hope and wish. You can put it up then, because guess what? Now, all of a sudden, You got a quarterback. You think you got a top 5 quarterback. They say we punted on this year, but next year we'll have him. We'll have him.
All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, this is Cassius, the quintessential Cleveland Browns fan. I'm calling you as I watch the Cleveland Browns play the Buffalo Bills in the second half. Here's my prediction. When Deshaun Watson comes back, if he doesn't go at least 4-2, Kevin Stefanski and his whole staff will be fired. You mark that. Kevin Stefanski will be fired if Deshaun Watson don't go at least 4-2. That's all I have to say right now. Tell me what you think about that. I know you're going to disagree with me, but don't forget, I'm the one who said it. Either way, I'm Browns for life.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. I'm with you, G. Bush. I don't think they're going to fire Kevin Stefanski. That he's going to get a full season. But you're right. If he goes 3-3, 4-2, the seat's pretty hot at the beginning of next season.
Oh yeah, it'd be hot at the next season. See, that's why my conspiracy theory is working really well right now. The gentleman's punt on the season. They all knew it, right? They all got it. They told Kevin, look, you're good for this year. I think when they brought Deshaun Watson in and they had to answer them questions about Deshaun Watson for about, 4 or 5 weeks in a row, your man, the Haslams wrote off on that. Jimmy and D wrote off and said, listen, you guys already know, because here's the thing, this could get ugly. The lawyers told him it could get ugly. The PR people told him it could get ugly. And then when they changed it from 6 to 11, he said, listen, guys, don't worry about it. I got you. Go out here, do the best you can. You guys are safe. Everybody's cool. We'll weather the storm, and we'll start the clock over when Deshaun gets back that next year. Now, here's the thing. If you operate under that premise, it makes sense then. Why would Andrew Berry go out and waste money on Ndamukong Suh or anybody else? Because guess what? It doesn't count. Doesn't matter. Why would we run the ball with Nick Chubb 40 times a game? Hey, Derrick Henry runs the ball more than that. Hey, Saquon Barkley runs the ball. Nick Chubb is the best running back in the league. Why don't they do it? Well, why would we ruin him when we could run him like that or get the most out of him when Deshaun Watson is playing? There you go. They didn't go out and get receivers. They just, they said we're going to rock and roll. Donovan Peoples-Jones looks like he's a number 2 receiver now. Amari Cooper shows he looks like a number 1 receiver. And guess what? Everything looks great. Kevin Stefanski's not going anywhere. And the reason why he hasn't moved off of Joe Woods so far is because he wants to be like, listen, I'm going to give you a courtesy as a pro. I'm going to be a professional guy. I brought you in here. I don't believe Kevin Stefanski means move. I don't believe he believes in moving on from coaches during the middle of the year. He's giving him the coach's grace here. He's going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to let you finish what you started in the offseason. We may move on for you, but that's just not what my character is. And guess what? He can do that because Jimmy Haslam said he's going to be here regardless. So he's not going to do that either. So, hey, he's going to be here regardless. It is what it is, and that's why the press conferences sound the way they are.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, some names to think about as potential defensive coordinators for the Browns in the future. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with G. Bush, host of the Barbershop on 92.3 The Fan, Saturdays from 8 to noon, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is to all the Browns fans, just a long-time Browns fan myself. I wonder if you just think that maybe, just maybe, Joe Woods' scheme's not as bad as Joe Woods' players are. If you look at every major game that we've got our butt kicked, and it's been a lot now, right? We're getting ran over like those are men playing against the boys. And you look at our average age and look at the average age we're playing against. and you just can't compensate for grown man strength. Wilson Jr. ran us over. Cook ran us over. He didn't have to run through big holes, even when there was no holes. They ran us over. That's the problem. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate it. G. Bush, I'm with you. I think the scheme, they're not aggressive enough. And the other thing I'll say, young and good is okay. And we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Listen, you're nice. Listen, it's Thanksgiving out there. He's showing you that holiday cheer. I agree with you, man. Like, at some point in time, when somebody's just lining up when you're hitting you in the mouth, you got to get reinforcements, man. You know, I think one of the things that they thought they were going to do as they punted on this year was be able to at least mask it because they got really two good bookends. They said we could start with Clowney and Myles Garrett. And what teams realized was it's just like baseball. Teams like to be strong up the middle. You want to have your catcher, your pitcher, your shortstop and second baseman, and you want your center fielder. That sets up everything you're doing defensively, right? It's the same thing with football. The defensive tackles are there in order to either cause or disrupt, which is if you're going to have smaller defensive tackles, that's what you want. You want those guys upfield. You saw a little bit of those with the Bills. They don't have huge defensive tackles, but what they do have is quick guys who are disruptors. Or you're going to have huge defensive tackles, which is kind of a little bit outdated. You got to go back to Sam Adams and the Tony Saraguses of the world back when the Ravens were rolling. Two big guys. You look at the Williams brothers in Minnesota. Two big guys where you can't move them. And then you have a middle linebacker that is able to flow from sideline to sideline to make tackles. And obviously, if you got a guy like Ray Lewis and you got a guy like Ed Reed who's playing in your middle of your field, then you have an all-time great defense, right? And those are things we know. But the Browns try to get cute. They try to make you think they was like, we got something here. We're going to try this thing where we're going to have light D tackles, but we got light linebackers, but we kind of still got safeties that both is free safeties. None of them is strong safeties. So what happens is you got a bunch of guys that are athletes, but listen, athletes is great until you get somebody on you blocking you. And they're just washing that first level down. And then you got guys like JOK who are small, not very gap assignment heavy. Watched all 22. He's consistently in the wrong gap. He needs to be a rover type player where they could get roam, not too many responsibilities. Jacob Phillips was a speed linebacker. He was playing horrible before he got hurt. And then when you have a guy like Anthony Walker, who was probably your best, gap sound defensive player, fundamentals, read his keys, get everybody lined up. When he's out, then you got a problem because now JOK, is he going to line people up? No. And then you bring Taki in, who actually, to be truthful, is probably one of their most solid defenders, but he's a guy. He's a depth piece. He's not a guy that's going to go in and make plays. And, he's a guy who's really a good, strong side linebacker who, is going to make some plays, but he's not going to be a name you just drop as a playmaker. And then what really hurts is in the secondary, you got John Johnson and you got Grant Delpit, and I thought Grant Delpit was really going to take a step. But John Johnson has just he hasn't been as advertised. He hasn't been as consistent. I don't really know what his skill set is. He's not really a tackler. He's not a ball hawk. He's not really a guy that's getting you lined up all that well. I just don't know what his skill set is. And when you have all of those things we just mentioned, you end up with everybody having a personal day on you up the middle. It is what it is.
It's a mess. It is a mess. All right, let's take a look. These are 5 defensive coordinator targets for the Browns. It's from Corey Kinnan from BrownsWire.com. So Ejiro Evero, that's defensive coordinator for the Broncos, kind of a young guy. Number 2, Vic Fangio, who's now a defensive analyst for the Eagles. That defense is playing really well. Ryan Walters, defensive coordinator from the University of Illinois. Brian Flores, senior defensive analyst for the Steelers. And then another one, Mike Zimmer, who is currently the defensive analyst for Jackson State, and Deion Primetime Sanders, who was one of his DBs with the Cowboys. I'm with you. I want to see an older guy. I want to see basically Bill Callahan on the defensive side of the ball.
There you go. I love Zimmer, and he's not gonna play around with you. I talk around with all kind of people that have played for him. Dustin Fox. I've talked to a lot of people that played underneath him. He's not gonna play around. He brings that attitude to the table, and his defenses perform well traditionally. Also, love the Flores name. I like that. Was in Pennsylvania, was in New England. Like what he did there. I thought he got a raw deal a little bit in Miami. I thought he had defenses there that performed higher than what it is. He's a pressure type guy. He's the guy who made Lamar Jackson look regular. Like Lamar Jackson was destroying everybody in the league. He said, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna put up everybody at the front of the line of scrimmage and see if you can beat that. Choose which one of us is blitzing. If you can do that the whole game, we'll put you in the Hall of Fame. Other than that, we plan on lining up this way the whole game." Shout out to him. And then I like Vic Fangio too. Hey, he seems like he's the new age Wade Phillips. It seems like Wade Phillips coached for everybody. Vic Fangio looks like he coached for everybody. But guess what? I know he got a program. I know he knows what it is. He coached on some of those teams with Von Miller, some of the guys that got after quarterbacks. But I like all of that. The name I'm totally against. I haven't heard the Avero cat. I haven't heard anybody from college. Nah, I'm sorry. I can't do it. Listen. Yep. I'm sorry. No, unless it's Nick Saban. If you get Nick Saban to be your defensive coordinator, clap it up. I won't hear nobody else from college other than that.
Now, Mike Zimmer was also part of the Viking staff for Kevin Stefanski as well. So Kevin Stefanski was on his staff. So keep that in mind. Just file it away. I mentioned Zimmer a couple weeks ago. I think I would like that as well. All right, G. Bush and I are going to step aside. Going to take one more time out. We will come back and talk a little bit more about your questions from the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
G. Bush and I continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi. Yeah, this is Paul in Finley calling about the game on Sunday. A couple of things I haven't heard too much about. On the two drop passes in the end zone to Bryant and Farrell, why weren't those passes aimed at Cooper or Peoples-Jones? Or if to a tight end, why not to Njoku? I think the calls were basically faulty, and you got to blame that on Stefanski. And then one more thing, on the two botched-up quarterback sneaks, why call quarterback sneak 1, and especially 2, behind a center who has never played center before? And then in the game, you saw that he botched up a couple of other snaps as well. So I'm thinking Stefanski has some issues as far as play calling. Thanks. Goodbye.
All right, let's look at this. This is the one he's talking about, to Harrison Bryant. And this is what we call a busted coverage. Harrison Bryant's all alone. I mean, they completely forgot to cover him. Harrison Bryant, I don't know if he stumbled. I don't know if he mistimed his jump. The throw wasn't that bad. An NFL tight end or receiver has to make that catch. And there's another look at it. That's as wide open as you get in the NFL. Relative to the quarterback sneaks, there's a point there. I can't disagree with that based on the backup center, and we've talked about that. But reading that play dictates you throw the ball to Harrison Bryant. Jacoby Brissett did a nice job with that. That isn't really the play calling.
Yeah, it's so to explain it on that play call, there's 3 or 4 different routes that they're running, right? Based on what the defense is going to give you, you're going to choose the route that is open or where the play is supposed to go based on what the defense gives you. They left Harrison Bryant alone all by himself. Now there's 2 things that you can kind of nitpick. Harrison Bryant puts his hand up, which kind of stops his momentum a little bit. And then when he has to backpedal now because the football is coming, if he's able to get more depth, it's all like being I explained it, it's always like being an outfielder. It's always good to always start back and then come in on the ball. But if you start coming in first and then you try to, oh goodness, this is over my head, you'll never get there, right? You can always comfortably move forward than back. So when he put his hand up, he should have not even worried about it. He should have been expecting that the quarterback would see him, and it's one of those things where if he would have done that, maybe he would have been able to get his feet in the back of the end zone and then kind of jump up and tiptoe and be able to stay in without his momentum taking him back because he realized the ball might be over his head a little bit. That's being nitpicky a little bit. Another thing with the quarterback, sometimes when people say, well, what's the difference between what Jacoby Brissett will do and what's the difference he's playing well than what Deshaun Watson would be able to do? Well, in that case, you could say, well, look, sometimes your quarterback slows you down. And he slows you down by doing things like, hey, I'm going to underthrow this ball, right? I'm going to underthrow it on purpose because that stops his momentum from going backwards. And maybe he can make that catch and get his feet in. But if I throw it the ball where I'm supposed to throw it, he's going to be out of bounds and not be able to get 2 feet in. So sometimes you see those on slant routes. Sometimes you see that on routes where they're playing zone and somebody is going to take a huge hit. They slow the receiver down by throwing it behind him. And sometimes people say, well, he threw that behind him. Well, he had to throw it behind him or he's going to get destroyed and probably end up dropping the ball anyway. So all those things are just small little things that go into it. Over and over again, we talk about it, but other teams in the league are making those plays on the Browns. The Browns aren't making those plays, and then you can see that's the small error that they talk about between you winning and you losing.
All right, before we let you go, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one more time.
Hello, Browns Nation. I go back as far as the Bill Nelson days with Paul Warfield and the Gary Collins run of the famous post. My issue is with the Browns front office. The Browns front office said they want their players to be tough and accountable. Well, the front office need to be tough and accountable. They knew for 3 years that Woods is not a championship defensive coordinator, but still, 3 years later, we still have him, and they decided to let the whole season go for Joe Woods. Just ruined this season, and it's very disappointing. My problems with the front office. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. I get G. Bush. I'm kind of with you. I wanted to give him the chance to get his players in, but we've seen that, and I've seen that play. I don't like how it ends.
No, yeah, like now, but now listen, I'm with everybody. Under no stretch of the imagination, he's getting no redo. If they go in and try to sell you on, well, it really wasn't Joe again, it was his players. Well, then you have to go back and say, well, okay, well, it may not be Joe's play calling, but what it might be is Joe's evaluation. Because I'm sure they went to Joe Woods and said, hey, what do you like about this player? What don't you like about the player? Who's on your list of players that you would like to contact or draft? I'm sure they had these conversations. So I don't think he's going to get that, and I don't think Joe Woods will be back with the team. But for me, as a person who looked at it, and I was hot too, I was mad and upset. Why didn't you get D tackles? Why didn't you prioritize why aren't we blitzing? Why are we doing all those other things? It's because they've prioritized and they've made some decisions, and the decisions were. I'm sure they were tough ones, and watch, mark my words. I'll probably come back on here. We'll be in the off season or something, and Kevin Stefanski or Andrew Berry will let on or give you guys a little nugget and say, we always kind of knew it was going to be a uphill battle when Deshaun was out for the majority of the year, and as an organization. We were still wanted to be competitive, but, you also have to be realistic in understanding that, given the way the AFC looked and some of the climate, we couldn't really pivot and change our philosophy overnight. We couldn't really pivot and bring in other people with the cap and different things. So we just decided that, we were probably going to be less competitive than we were. And obviously we didn't want that, but It's just the cards that we were given, and we believed it was the better choice to still go out there and trade those picks to get a franchise quarterback because we think Deshaun is, and you saw it at the end of the year. Now, if he plays well and he throws up some points and they win some games, that whole speech I just gave you is stomachable, right? But if he goes out there and like tries hard because he hasn't played in 3 years and he pulls a hamstring and misses 4 out of the last 6 games, that is going to be a nightmare to talk about because your pick is going over there. Then you got to re-amp people up, and that's going to be a tough sell. So the best thing for them, Deshaun is good enough to save them for a little bit of time. They just have to hope he plays well.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you.
All right, G. Bush.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, too, by the way.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Have a good one, man. Make sure you catch him, G. Bush, 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, Saturdays 8 till noon. You can also catch him Monday through Friday from 11 to 1 on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. We turn our attention to the Cavs. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We turn our attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Cavs were without Karis LeVert. They were without Dean Wade last night, and they won their 3rd straight at home. They defeated the Atlanta Hawks. Close game in the 4th quarter, and then Cavs really started to pull away. Here's J.B. Bickerstaff on what he saw from his team last night.
The second half, I thought we did a great job. We've shown what we're capable of defensively. We know when we're at our best, we can create stops, we can force turnovers, we can create easy opportunities for ourselves because of that. But I think, in that 4th quarter, holding them to 17 points until that last 3, that's how you win basketball games against good teams, is you lock down defensively. And that helped our offense. When you're getting stops, you're playing in the flow and not against a set defense as much. And I thought we were able to score as well.
With that, let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. And Sam, we had talked last time we talked about the Cavs defense. They seem to be finding that pretty well. That's a pretty good Hawks team that they held right around to 100 points.
Yeah, and they kept Trae Young and DeJounte Murray especially from getting too many good looks at the basket. Murray really struggled. I think he was 4 of 17 shooting, and a lot of that had to do with the Cavs defense. He wasn't getting very many comfortable looks at the basket. So, we've seen this, Dave, now. The Cavs have been better defensively at home so far this season. They've had a few nice defensive efforts on the road, but they just seem to be able to sustain it a little bit more when they're at home. They played with a lot of energy against the Hawks. The Hawks were ahead of them in the standings going into that game. And I think the Cavs were out to prove something. We heard Darius Garland say, the guys who were here last year, remember that play-in tournament game last year where the Hawks ended the season. So I think the Cavs really showed a lot. And like JB said, so oftentimes their defense has led to easy baskets for them, or at least really good scoring opportunities for them. And we've seen more of that over the last 3 or 4 games.
So you alluded to the defense on the 2 main scorers, Murray and Young. And take a look at this. This kind of gives some numbers to what you were talking about. They were 14 of 40 from the field, 2 of 12 from three-point range, and they combined for 10 turnovers. And Sam, that's a backcourt a lot like the Cavs. Murray and Young are a lot like Garland and Mitchell. Advantage last night to Garland and Mitchell without question.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Garland and Mitchell. It was you talk about Jared Allen and Evan Mobley getting switched off onto those guards and helping out on the perimeter even. And that was a big deal there. Jared Allen has been fantastic in the games that he's obviously been healthy and played, really helping out on the perimeter by kind of shadowing off his man. And, he's got great length there when you're talking about defending opposing guards. And even if he doesn't switch out onto the guards all the way, he at least shows himself enough that, players like Trae Young and Murray have to think twice about either driving to the basket or taking a jumper because maybe Allen's going to switch off onto them. But, when you talk about offense, Garland and Mitchell really had one of those nights that everybody envisioned where, they combined for a lot of points themselves and really seemed to have a good chemistry. And the nice thing about it, like you said, Dave, was it came against really one of the premier backcourts in the Eastern Conference other than the Cavs in Trae Young and Murray. So, yeah, definitely round one to Garland and Mitchell.
The other thing is it wasn't just Garland and Mitchell. Cavs shot 60% from the field, 42 of 70. Last time Cleveland shot 60% or better from the field in a single game, March 20th, 2018, against Toronto. So that's from the Cavs team notes. That shows you that the ball was moving around, and it wasn't one guy, it wasn't two guys, it was everybody.
Yeah, during the losing streak, that's kind of where they had their issues. Was the ball would stick, one guy would try to. I don't want to say play hero ball because that's not really their mindset. But, every once in a while when things aren't clicking and you have a lot of scoring options and really good players who have the ability to score, sometimes they try to take matters into their own hands to see if they can't give the team a lift. Last night against the Hawks, that was not the case. They didn't need that. Even when the game was tight, they kept things moving. We saw Garland hit a lot of open threes. He was open because, the ball was swinging. It was going inside and then back out. Then there was Cedi Osman, who also got a lot of points off of turnovers and hit a couple threes himself. So when things like that happen, not only are your star players going, but you also have your quote-unquote role players or reserves also getting open looks and feeling comfortable as well. And it panned out because not only Cavs get a lot of open looks, but they actually knocked them down.
So this is from the NBA tweet. Trio of 20-plus scorers led the way for the Cavs in that win. Donovan Mitchell, take a look at that. 29 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals. Darius Garland, 26 points, 9 assists. And then Cedi Osman, like you said, 23 points. Sam, I think it's important to remember that Garland and Mitchell, there was a bunch of games where they didn't play with each other because they were injured. So, how many ever games we're in, 19, 18, whatever it is, into the game, they've probably only played together about 10 to 12. So they're still developing, and they're just going to keep getting more and more comfortable.
Yeah, and that's the Cavs kind of knew that all along. Garland and Mitchell knew that coming into the season is they're going to take some time to adjust to each other as well as to their other teammates. But, getting those two clicking, even if nobody else is clicking, that can carry you quite a ways. So, anytime you mix in stars together, all stars, they have to find each other's rhythms and get comfortable. And last night was a prime example of what they can do when they are comfortable and, feeding off each other and how much, when Mitchell and Garland got it going, both of them at the same time, well, that opens things up for everybody else. And that really was on full display against the Hawks. I suspect it's going to still be bumpy at times, but, the idea is to be playing your best in the second half of the season toward the playoffs when you really want those guys to have a lot of games together under their belts and feeling much more comfortable with each other as well as, the other 6, 7, 8 guys in the rotation.
It's really interesting. There are a lot of guys that J.B. Bickerstaff can put on the floor and get different things from. Like, where I'm going with that is Lamar Stevens. It seems like every time he's called on, he finds a way to do something to help the Cavs win.
Without question. I mean, he's really kind of, every team needs that kind of energy guy, a guy who's willing to play any role, a guy who accepts the fact that, hey, I'm not in the rotation right now, but injuries happen, and when they do, I'm going to make the most of my opportunities. And that's been Lamar Stevens this season. He quietly is able to score some baskets just off pure energy. Last night, he even hit a three-pointer. Just a guy with a great attitude who comes in. They have the Junkyard Dog Award. It really should be named after him, because that's the type of play that he exudes, is just all-out hustle all the time, doesn't really force anything. He's really grown. You can see just in a few games this season as a player to this season. Versatile player who does a little bit of everything, and Cavs are thrilled to have him. He was a steal where they got him.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And there are 1 through 12. They have guys that if you get into a certain situation, this guy can come off the bench and help you.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the nice thing. You look at Kevin Love was out versus the Heat on Sunday night. Well, Cedi Osman comes in and grabs 12 rebounds, scores 20 points, but also grabs 12 important rebounds, which, just shows their versatility, their ability that they have multiple guys like that, Okoro and Cedi and Lamar Stevens, to name a few, that can play, multiple styles, multiple types of positions. Karis LeVert was out Monday night. They were able to replace him. Dean Wade's been out, so they're finding ways to maximize these guys off the bench. And a lot of that is because they do have kind of a team first concept, which, sounds simple, but it can get complicated sometimes. And they really do. They're very much a cohesive unit from, 1 to 9, 10, 11, because of J.B. Bickerstaff's approach, the culture in the locker room. And Kobe Altman has done a nice job of finding players who can do multiple things pretty well, and, surrounded his, you want to say 3 All-Stars, include Jared Allen in there, his 3 All-Stars with guys who can do a little bit of everything.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out on the other side of the break. We continue talking Cavs. We'll look a little bit ahead of where the Cavs are headed. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about the Cavs getting that defense going. They won 8 in a row, then they lost 5. Now they've won 3 straight. And really, it's the defense that kind of sets the tone.
What I think is all of our stuff works together, right? Our offense helps our defense helps our offense. In that stretch, I know people want to talk about our defense, but our offense wasn't helping us. We were playing at a tempo that, just isn't good for us. So we need to be able to slow the game down, control the game, put people in the proper spots, have great floor balance, and make teams go against our half-court defense. If you have to go against our half-court defense, you're going to be in for a tough time. So our offense is just a bigger problem in that stretch as our defense was.
And Sam, what he's saying is we can't play too fast because our half-court defense is really good.
Yeah, well, and that's true. And he made a good point is sometimes we always talk about how the defense leads the offense, but sometimes the offense also will result in better defense. Anybody who's played basketball will tell you once I start making shots and start feeling good, then it energizes you and you play defense harder. The key is to remember for any basketball player, but for the Cavaliers particularly, is when the shots aren't dropping, when things aren't going smoothly on offense, you're kind of out of sorts offensively, you can always make up for it at the other end. You can make the other team's life difficult as possible at the other end. And, proportions against the Hawks, who are obviously a very good team, probably be battling with the Cavs for a top 4 seed in the East. Things were kind of clunky there for the Cavs a little bit offensively in the first half from time to time, but to their credit, they just kept defending, kept after it, kept playing with energy, and eventually that wore the Hawks down, and I was kind of waiting for the Cavs to wear down because they had just played the previous night against the Heat, but that ended up being a blowout. So it seemed to offer them, we can push it a little harder because even though we had a game last night, we had some rest. So, the biggest thing for them is, continue to play, as Coach Bickerstaff alluded, continue to play playoff-style basketball all season long, and that's grind it out when you have to, when the shots and the offense isn't clicking, grind it out at the other end, and give yourself a chance to win by keeping the game close. So, to their credit, they've done that all season. You don't see the Cavs getting blown out. You see them fighting to the finish. Even when they don't finish strong, they've been in just about every game.
Yeah, without question. And you know what? It's a young team that's kind of figuring out how they have to play to win. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, right now, one bright and positive note about being a Cleveland fan this late fall and winter, after trying to figure out the disaster and unorganization of what's happening on the football field with the Browns, we have the total opposite to watch, a team that's going in a positive direction, the Cleveland Cavaliers. A team fighting for each other, fighting from the tip-off to the end of the game. Each game they're making the right adjustments and everyone is buying in and performing at a high standard. And this is a refreshing display how a true united team is supposed to look like. True winners on and off the court. And being a big Ohio fan, hopefully the weekend will be ending successfully with a perfect regular season for the Buckeyes with a big-time win against a team up north.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails, Sam. Cavs are trying to sweep a 4-game homestand. So, again, that's the first thing is win your home games, defend your home court, go out and split on the road. And if you do that, you're going to end up winning about 67% of your games.
Yeah, Dave, that's exactly it. You take care of business at home. You're not going to win every home game. There's going to be times where injuries or even just the schedule maker isn't particularly kind. We saw that against the Timberwolves a couple weeks back where the Cavs came home from a long West Coast trip and then, get the Minnesota Timberwolves like 2 nights later and a Timberwolves team that had been sitting around. So sometimes schedule doesn't do you favors, but that's the idea. Take care of the games that you should win at home. Steal some on the road against some good teams like we've seen the Cavs do already against the Celtics. Beat the teams that are struggling on the road. And we saw the Cavs do that already against the Lakers and the Pistons, so they're right on course. I had one opposing GM tell me the other day, Dave, this is the best thing about it. He doesn't think the Cavs have played their best basketball game. And here they are in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference, despite a 5-game losing streak in there. So better things could still be ahead, even better than that.
Yeah, and you know what? Again, they're so young, and let's see where that goes. This is kind of interesting. I'm not sure I agree with this. So this is from the Bleacher Report. NBA starting lineups that desperately need a change. 1, the Cavs. Starting 5, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. In a vacuum, LeVert is the best overall player at small forward group. They list LeVert, Osman, and Wade. But that doesn't mean he's the best fit amongst a core that's all under contract for the next 3 to 6 seasons. Cavs need someone who can defend and hit open threes, something LeVert's only shown the ability to do in spurts. I'd be curious as to your take. I think that's kind of an oversimplification of what they're looking for from the small forward.
Yeah, I don't like the use of the word desperately need to make the move there at small forward. Look, I think Caris LeVert just needs some more time. I think the Cavs believe that. Obviously, they've brought him off the bench recently just to see how that works. You know, you can afford to try to mix something up. But I think that Caris LeVert has done just fine. He's just not making shots. He's not making shots that he normally makes. So maybe they can get him going by putting him in a reserve role. And the Cavs haven't given up on that idea of him starting at small forward in the long term. And then, you know, when they get to the playoffs and all that, I just think that it's, you know, hey, let's try something else to get Caris going, feeling more comfortable shooting the ball. He's just struggling in that area. And you know, I thought other than that, he's really played well and really shown a lot as a facilitator. He's done a nice job defensively. He really is their best option at small forward at this point, as far as the starting. You know, but that said, there might be a little bit of truth there. Maybe Dean Wade, when healthy, gives you that extra size. Caris LeVert gives you that extra punch off the bench. Maybe that's where you go for the long term, is having Wade started, quote unquote, small forward. You know, I mean, that's something they'll consider. I mean, if Chetty keeps this up, I think they like him off the bench. I think that they think he works very well off the bench. But if he keeps playing like this, yeah, he'd probably be in contention to start at some point. So it's way too soon to say the Cavs are desperate to, you know, make a move at small forward or that Caris LeVert's not a fit. I just think that deserves more time, and that, you know, LeVert has shown in the past that he is a starter caliber player, and neither he nor the Cavs have given up on that idea.
No, I agree. And you know what, Sam? It's always great to have options. There's nothing bad about having options. Sam Amico, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me. We will chat at you soon.
Sounds good, Sam Amico. Make sure you check him out, hoopswire.com. Great stuff about the entire NBA, specifically about the Cavs as well. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow on Sports for CLE.